Trump back on the way to the White House. Let's talk about all of that now with our international affairs editor, Philip Turle, joining me here on set. Philip, number of names then already being bandied about, including those two I just mentioned. What's your bet?
Right, okay, well, let's start with the most obvious candidate, shall we? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is the son, the nephew of the former assassinated US President John F. Kennedy. Of course, they were Democrats. He was an independent candidate. Then he jumped ship and joined Donald Trump, who has said that he will let Kennedy go wild with health and food policy. Now, remember that Robert F. Kennedy is a skeptic about the coronavirus, about vaccines. He's an anti-vaxxer. He was also claimed that a worm had eaten part of his brain. He's been known to have killed a bear and dumped it in Central Park, and also driven with a whale on the roof of his car. So there is quite a lot of worry that if he does take over some kind of role in the health service, this is going to be bad news for research and also honesty coming out of there. It's unclear what Donald Trump is going to do with Robert F. Kennedy, but there are rumours that he will get some kind of post, some kind of prize for having supported him. As far as Elon Musk is concerned, a lot of speculation there about his involvement with Donald Trump. Remember that he's been paying out millions of dollars in prizes for voters who will back Donald Trump. It's expected that he could become what Donald Trump calls the Secretary of Cost Cutting, meaning that he's in charge of trying to bring down prices and to improve the economy. But there are questions being raised about whether he's more interested in trying to use his position in politics to boost SpaceX and also the use of what was formerly Twitter, now X, which both belong to him. Could there be a conflict of interest as far as that's concerned? A couple of other candidates, Donald Trump Jr., the son of Donald Trump, he's called the influencer. It was he who brought in J.D. Vance as the running mate, the vice president to be. He's also been described as a new ideologist for the Republican Party. His wife, Lara Trump, is leading the Republican National Committee, shaping the Republican Party in the Trump mold for the future. And Susie Wiles, she wrote the victory speech for Donald Trump yesterday. She's been described as a political strategist who made this a much more efficient election campaign for Donald Trump than in 2016 or 2020. So all of those names are possible future household names in the United States if they're not already today.
A lot of comment was made of this project, wasn't it, 2025 earlier this year, drawn up by a bunch of former Trump supporters. Tell us what it is.
Right, this is a project put forward by the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank, and it does make quite alarming reading. Its aim is to promote conservative policies and Christian values, to reshape the federal government and consolidate executive power, to complete presidential control or have complete presidential control over the executive branch, and all federal civil service workers in their tens of thousands will be political appointees loyal to the president, i.e. they could be much more easily dismissed if they don't go along with what the president wants. Now, that's not all. There are also plans to making abortion even more complicated by having a nationwide ban on abortion. Remember, at the moment, it's just the states that decide whether or not they want to ban abortion or not, and also to make contraception more difficult to get hold of, to do away with the education ministry, and also be much more strict in the judiciary in the United States. There are many legal experts who said that this project would undermine the rule of law, separation of powers, separation of church and state, and civil liberties, and be much more authoritarian. But Donald Trump's always pulled away from it, saying it's nothing to do with him. He's not going to get involved in this. But there are members of the Republican Party who have said now that he's elected, Project 2025 will be on the rails, and the latest one to say that it was fabulous was Steve Bannon, the former White House aide, who's just been recently released from prison after contempt of Congress. So I think that's definitely one to watch, Stuart.
OK, we shall see. What about Donald Trump's perhaps main election pledge, along with the economy, to fix the borders, deport thousands of migrants? Is that really going to...
Well, this is also going to be part of Project 2025, which wants to just clamp down on migration completely. When asked, the United States say 39% of Americans say that migrants should be deported, but 56% say migrants should actually be allowed to stay in the country and to apply apply for legal status. So it's going to be pretty hard for Donald Trump to bring this into effect. What he's trying to do here is to lean on what is already existing, which is called the Alien Enemies Act, which dates from 1798. It's been used only 3 times previously, once in the War of 1812, once in the First World War, and again in the Second World War. What it does is to justify putting people in internment camps. That's what happened in the Second World War for the Japanese, and German and Italian descendants. They're being called by Congress to repeal this law. But I think it will be very complicated for Donald Trump to use it, because you have to prove that the immigrants were sent by a foreign government, which is almost impossible to prove for those immigrants coming into the United States. But it's not a good sign for what Donald Trump wants to do. What will probably happen is that any of those migrants who face deportation will then get an attorney and will try to block it, and it will become very hard for the government to get them out of the country.
Philip, thanks very much. Philip Turle, International Affairs Editor here on France 24.